Hey, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Ardmore Connect. My name is Josh Pagan.
Hi, and I'm Brian Cronin, and today we have Sherry Tillman with Past, Present, Future, a local shop here in Ardmore. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Sherry.
Thanks for having me.
So I just wanted to touch base a little bit. Can you give us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what is Past, Present, Future?
All right, well, I started in 1976, don't do the math, in Philadelphia. I went to art school and I wanted to open a handmade, actually toy store, which is how I started at 13th and Pine by Dirty Frank's, which is my stomping.
Oh,
I went to PA, yeah. And I was there for several years, and then I moved to 17th and Locust, and actually Dandelion was on the corner. I was like catty corner to them. And then from there, I moved to 18th and Market, where I was the longest, and I had a 4-story building, and my store was on 2.5 floors. And I had 7 employees, and it was, being in Center City for a long time. As the economy got worse there during that period, I decided, and we started to get held up, which was not so great. Mostly I have a gun and, it's under their shirt and whatever. So I decided this wasn't what I really signed up for. And mostly I had girls, art students that worked for me, and this just didn't seem like a safe environment. And I thought of all the things after 20 years of being in business, what I wanted to do. And I had lived in Ardmore, before that anyway. I said, well, I maybe just open my store in Ardmore. And so it was like starting all over again. I've now been in Ardmore 24 years, longer than I was in Center City. I was originally on the other side of Ardmore Avenue, which is now the empty lot where Tired Hands is, with Mr. Smith, who had Smith Supply, and he was quite a character. He was there for, a long, long time, and I had a little storefront there. And then when the redevelopment was going to happen, and that was going to be torn down, and it was already purchased by the people that were going to tear it down, they became my new landlords. It was all the other businesses had jumped bail, and I was just kind of stuck there with me and a knife store, which was Ardmore Floor Sanding. And I was able to buy the property that I have now, 15 West Lancaster, in the middle of the block. And always being on the other side of Ardmore Avenue, it felt like I was disconnected from the town of Ardmore anyway. And so then I was like right in the heart of the town. And, it's really, wonderful to be able to give to the town and be part of it and to redo it and stuff like that. And I also started First Friday Main Line. There was a lot of divisions. I was part of the Save Ardmore Coalition to stop the eminent domain that was happening. And we were successful in stopping it for a lot of different reasons. I won't go into that, but in any event, to pull all the factions of the people in the town that were really at odds for different reasons, First Friday seemed to bring everybody together. It was celebrating art, visual and performing art in 3 towns. We had a trolley that went from Ardmore to Bryn Mawr. We had art in unexpected places, music on the streets, and it was really, really fabulous. And I did that for 9 years as a volunteer, spending more time doing that than actually working at my store as an unpaid person. And then as the redevelopment was going to happen on Cricket, it seemed like it was time to stop that, honestly, because it became harder to put those events on. And Cricket was really the better place to have live music and stuff because it was kind of in the center of Ardmore. And then I thought, fine, I'll just focus more on the store. And I do a lot of nonprofit. I started a nonprofit that brought toys and clothes and things to people in Afghanistan. And I did that with my friend that was in the Army at the time, and did it in 3 different times. And that was an unbelievable experience for me because it got picked up by CNN, and people at Christmas time were bringing hats, gloves, and scarves into my store that I was then shipping off. So, really feel so connected to trying to be a conduit to connect arts, culture, and goodness to everybody. That's kind of where I'm at. So that's
that sounds great. It sounds like you took everything, you kind of put it into one little community, and then moved around and expressed the goodness of what you were doing, for several years and all tied together. So I've actually got something because you mentioned a few times about the redevelopment of Ardmore, and I'm sure you realize that it is going, there is more happening now. You know, someone that's been here for so long, how do you feel about places like Suburban Square coming in and some of the other new developments that are coming in and already approved?
Well, I mean, I live in Ardmore too. I live in walking distance, a 5-minute walk or 10-minute walk from my store. And I've lived in Ardmore now for 35 years almost. And, you know, Ardmore needed some help for sure. It had gone through many iterations of people, you know, it was like all the computer stores and it was all, you know, whatever, you know, over the period of time. And Main Street everywhere suffers because malls or whatever pull people in different directions. Of course, you know, the internet changed the game for a lot of people, but people still like to touch and feel, and that's what my store is all about. But at the same time, I feel that Ardmore suffers more than a lot of small towns. We're divided by a state highway, we're divided by railroad tracks, and Suburban Square has been like one of the oldest outdoor malls, you know, in the country, always pulling people away. And the town is in some, you know, there's been all kinds of things that have happened on the streetscapes. I feel like Ardmore in a certain way is a petri dish for Lower Merion. Like they tried this here and see if it works. And then, so we have different sidewalks, we have different lights. I think so the redevelopment definitely needed to happen. I think in some ways the infrastructure in terms of our traffic is a problem. And I think that that isn't necessarily being addressed by the township in a positive way for businesses. You know, for a lot of people, they don't really like walking on Lancaster Avenue because of the traffic. So some of the things the AI has then put in planners and stuff like that does definitely help have like sort of a physical barrier when you're walking. But I mean, at the same time, one of the greatest things about Ardmore is that it is a small, diverse town with, you know, encompassing so many different people. And now definitely has a younger vibe because of things like Tired Hands and stuff like that. So all those changes to me are really positive. There's just not a lot of retail in downtown Ardmore. There's a handful of retail stores. And that's a problem for somebody like me because there's not a synergy of people saying, oh, I'm going to come to Ardmore and shop today.
Right.
There's not a lot of places to go to.
That's a very good point, and I think I've mentioned it before, Brian. Ardmore is very similar, in my opinion, with the storefronts and everything they have going on to what Manayunk is. Different styles, but same as Manayunk. You really need people to want to walk around Ardmore, and I think you bring up an interesting point with the walkability of the Main Street. I mean, Main Streets all over the place are suffering because of how much is given to these cars, how much is given and taken away from the pedestrians who truly do utilize the space more often. I feel like that's a very interesting point. I'm glad you brought it up.
Well, and you know, I mean, there's TODS, it's transit-oriented development, which is what the Cricket project is about.
Sure.
We're supposed to, you know, now the train station is going to get redone, you know, like in a separate kind of thing. But what the TODs are is in concentric circles, and we have must here in Ardmore, which nobody else has either, to make it at the tallest where the train station is, and work out in concentric circles. That leaves out Ardmore West from being tall, which is so crazy. That should be high there. And that could be a good anchor to get people to move back and forth. But in terms of the town, I mean, I love the people. I love my customers. And that's why I'm still doing this 44 years later. I can have real conversations with people in my store that you don't get in any other part of my life, you know. So
a lot of that has to do with even like your neighbors too. Like you come in and you see your neighbors every day, your other businesses, and you interact. I like the fact that you team up along with your other neighbors and you put on these different events throughout the town. That's something that I've always admired. I've been in here now 13 years in Ardmore, so I've been, you know, I came in here kicking and screaming, didn't really want to be here myself, but now that I'm here, I love it. I thrive it. I don't even go to the city anymore. I don't need to. Everything I need is here. But I agree with you. The west and the east of Ardmore do get separated a lot, and sometimes I feel there's a loss. What do you think that could be?
if they're, you know, first of all, Ardmore was in redevelopment for such a long time, and because of all the lawsuits, you know, we were like kind of stuck. So if I was a retailer, honestly, I don't think I would have opened a store in Ardmore at that time. If I was a restaurant, yes, because people travel to restaurants all over. If a new restaurant opens, you're going to go to it. There's a lot of service industry, a lot of hair salons, a lot of nail salons. I don't think there's enough. I think what would change Ardmore and make it better is a better retail mix, more small retailers coming in. And I'm thinking that if malls change, because people don't really want to go to malls, maybe some of those smaller businesses would open up in more small towns. I mean, there used to be more retailers, and I think if there was a better mix, that would be a connectivity of people going from place to place. I think definitely more outside activities where you don't have things in a central location, where you have things spread out, which gets people to go around. So like the Ardmore Business Association, I mean, one of the things that I like is their Halloween event where the kids come trick-or-treating. I have the kids come in, I take their pictures, I put them up on my Facebook page with permission. But things that bring people door to door. So when I did First Friday, we had music and little events in all kinds of spread out besides the big stage. If you have just one thing in the center of town, that's all people go to. They don't go to the other place, right? Mm-hmm. And so figuring ways to creatively do that. Now, a lot of other towns have things that we don't. We can't walk around with beers like they can in Media when they have their blues event. You know, our township won't let them do that. So they have beer gardens, which again corrals people in one place. You know, mm-hmm. Trying to think outside the box in terms of a connectivity to Suburban Square and stuff. I used to do a car event as part of First Friday, and we had the antique cars at Suburban Square once. You know, just to kind of maybe try to bridge that gap a little bit too. But you know, I think it's just being always trying to think of what people want, you know, what's going to bring people and make them feel connected to the community.
Now, Sherry, if you don't mind me just cutting in to ask real quick, when you did that car show event in Suburban Square, did you see an increase of people connecting with both sides?
Well, again, events are driven by the people coming to those events. So then what we were able to do is leave that place, and we did a little, it started as a car parade coming from the Ferrari dealership coming down with Ferraris and stuff. And then, so we were able to leave that and do a tour and go, I think we went to Haverford and turned around and came back down, and then went into the parking lot where our show is normally, was the cricket lot where One Cricket is now. And so it did get people, I think, to follow it. Mm-hmm. And I think that it also, to me, anything you can do that kind of like makes people realize that we're all one, and we're not two separate things, is a good thing.
I think that's always been one of the challenges that we have in Ardmore, is that a lot of people see Suburban Square as Suburban Square and not Ardmore. And I think that's the biggest challenge, is trying to group those together. And that's why with the ABA, when we do these events, we try to unite them all by bringing in different trolleys or different cars to go from one place to the other, just to try to get connection. I also feel like that Anderson Avenue would be the perfect spot if there were better retail on Anderson Avenue that will link the two. Yeah. And hopefully with the new development of the train station, maybe that area will get redeveloped, because it's all vacant. I mean, I'm not sure, but I'd love to see that spot going. And then there would be a connection between the two. Now, do you find that's always been something that's been a big challenge of yours, always, is bringing people over?
Always. So when I was listening to Joy saying when it went to Yellow, how the stores had started to open up, well, there's a lot of people that go to Suburban Square for lots of different reasons. Not a lot of people come to Lancaster Avenue, right? So it's more of a challenge for a small business like mine to attract those people. Now, while I was closed, and I, having been in business for 44 years, I never had an online store. So what I did, my pivot was to start an online store. And then I also do, and I still continue to do virtual shopping in the store because there's still people that won't come.
Right.
And I do curbside pickup, or I delivered locally, that kind of thing. I take pictures for people that can't do the video. Some older people can't do that, and I send them pictures. And then I'm able to ship stuff out. It's a challenge. It's a challenge because next to me is Dr. Hall. He's been opened, and having a few people at the beginning. Marian Art was closed for a long time. Now they're reopened. There's just not, the restaurants are still unfortunately where we are, there's really not, they can't really do outside dining that much. There's not like big enough sidewalks really. I wish the township would figure a way to maybe close down either, Station Road or something like that to give restaurants the opportunity to have an outdoor thing. East Passyunk, I just read, is closing it down for 2 days to have outdoor dining for the restaurants. I think that restaurants need a boost here. It's kind of scary for them. And I think anything we can do to, again, enhance the town, it would bring more people out, would make people feel more comfortable being out, and I think that's the challenge, is to make people more comfortable,
Did you open up once you went yellow yourself?
Yeah, we opened up. We're open, less hours than normal. I'm not there all. I have somebody else that works for me that works there. And it's slow. It's slow. And I didn't expect it to be busy. We have people that refuse to wear masks coming in, and I just say, I'm really sorry, but you have to wear a mask. Just.
I don't blame you. No, I think people.
And then we have hand sanitizer, excuse me, at the front doors and back door. And if people walk in without doing it, I'm like, hey, look, if you just sanitize your hands, you can touch anything you want. And then they do. Right? Because it's about safety. Because like when I first opened, I had an elderly couple, and I sell reader glasses, and they touched every one of the glasses. They bought like one pair or whatever. And after they left, I spent an hour cleaning every pair of glasses. And I was thinking like, oh my goodness, this is like ridiculous. So, you have to like weigh it, and it's really hard. It's really a challenge. In my 44 years, I don't remember anything as difficult as this. Even when I opened, and when I first opened, sometimes the only person I ever saw was my husband when he came to pick me up. So I remember those beginning days too, and
do you feel like you're going back? Does it feel like kind of like the beginning?
Yeah, in a way. It's like starting like in a whole new reality, right? For all of us, depending on who you are or what your comfort level is, there's a lot of people that will not go into a store, yet they'll go supermarket shopping. Right. And so that
I don't think they put two and two together. If you're going out to the supermarket, it's not a difference if you're going to a store, if that makes any sense. It's still going out to a retail place. I do have a question for you though. Do you guys have any kind of specials that you're running right now?
We have a gift certificate that's online and on my, my Facebook page and on my store, that it's $10. So if you got a $50, it costs you $40. If you got 100, it costs you $80.
Oh, wow.
I've sold some of those, and none of my gift certificates ever expire, or do my credits. So I forced to go back, because I write all my sales up by hand. It's like, the past, present, future. Anyway, I've had people come in with old credits from the 80s, and I have them, and they're like shocked. And I'm like, well, it's your money, and that's kind of how I feel about gift certificates. Why should they expire?
Isn't that like, I think it's a Pennsylvania law too. Isn't it like illegal for them to expire?
No, you can.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Years and years ago, I bought my husband all of these clothes from one of the men's clothing stores downtown. And of course, he returned everything and had that credit in his wallet for God knows, so he finally finds it. And it was 2 days after 1 year, and they refused to honor it.
Wow.
And so,
That says a lot about a business, though, because I mean,
Yeah, it does
you
say
have
a
no
lot.
problem taking the money, but now you're going to expire it, you know.
Right. See that, but a lot of gift certificates expire, and
Right.
actually gift cards lose their value if you don't use them.
Mhm.
A lot of them do. They go
Wow.
down the percentage after so many months. Yeah. So that's something that people, I like, for me as a person, I just want to get people to want to come and treat them the best way I can. And that's the way you stay in business. And it's not about like, some places won't let people write checks. I mean, that's crazy, because some of my older customers, who are the only people that write checks, that's the way they've always paid.
Sure.
And so if like, why would you do that? Like, why would you make it
now? You have an app now. You can just do a deposit right then and there.
right? But I mean, older people, I deposit my checks, no
That's
problem.
what I mean. Like,
I don't have to go to the bank anymore.
Well, I think the good thing here is you guys are a true brick and mortar that really cares for its customers, and we can actually appreciate that. I know I can definitely appreciate that. And I wanted to actually throw it back to something when we were talking about how you first started. I know you are a big like handcrafted store. Did you ever make any of the crafts that you sold in the store?
I do. And so I have some in there now, but they're more like crafty things rather than art things, just that I can do. I made a whole bunch of masks actually that are in the store. I decided I should do masks. But how I started it is I had a sewing machine in my first store, and people would come in and say, "Can you make me a 5-foot Bugs Bunny?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And then they'd leave, and I'm like, "Oh my God," So then I made it. And then didn't use a pattern. Like, 6 months later, somebody else comes in for a 5-foot Bugs Bunny. I'm like, oh, why didn't I make a pattern? But yeah, I mean, and to me, it's sort of like it's really hard for them. There's not a lot of venues for them to sell their goods. It's a very competitive world now with, now there's Etsy and all that kind of stuff. But like the Clover Market and things like that, all these indie markets, there's a lot of people crafting, doing things. And then there's a level of crafting that is on a high, I think, like a slightly higher plane, a little bit more refined. And I tend to sell more of that kind of thing, because though I do have some local people and I really support them, it's really about turning people on to the process of things being made by hand. We're so far from that in a way, with the technology in our world. It's so wonderful, that somebody can actually create something and that you can enjoy it. And to learn that process and to make a piece of jewelry takes so long, and people may not realize that. So that part of it is like, for me, being the conduit to like get people excited about it, to really appreciate the crafting of it is so important. And then it supports that artist, so needless to say, when I used to go to the shows, which I obviously can't now, people smile when they see me coming because they know I'm going to buy a lot. Because if you've been in my store, you can use a lot of merchandise. I like to support those people, that's important to me. Well, my husband's a cabinet maker. He makes like really high-end cabinets. He's also in business 44 years. So,
one of the things that you also do, in addition to the store, don't you also put together like, I would say like seminars or craft like events so that people can do hands-on events?
Right. So one of how I pivoted for First Friday, as I did First Friday Main Line on Saturdays. And I have 2 different events. One is, and there's 6 artists each. So there's different booths that I set up with an artist. So the first one is called Cubed Art. So it's a 3x3-inch balsa wood cube that I bought. And each artist teaches you a different technique to decorate this one side of the cube. And then you take your cube from artist to artist and you leave with this unique piece of art. You've learned 6 different techniques. Really fun. The other one I did is called, it just went out of my head. But anyway, you hang your art. And we made houses out of plastic sheeting that I had Jack Burns design them, and my husband make them. So it became like a my husband tried to kill me. But anyway, because Jack sent like, I don't know, like 85 drawings for it. Anyway, and this way the work was on 3x3 pieces of paper. Same idea, each artist would teach you a different technique, but in each artist had an artist house. Then your work got hung up in the house, and then your work is displayed. You could, of course, make extra and take those pieces home. And then I had those houses displayed in storefronts in the township, let me put it in their lobby. And now your work is viewed, you know. But again, it's that connection of, you know, you learn art in school, or you see art in a museum, or you see art in a store, and it's you're afraid to do it. But on the street, in such an easy way, you feel like, wow, I can do that, and hopefully then that takes home with you, and then you try to do something, and it's joyful, you know.
We have a question I wanted to ask you. Obviously, apart from your facility, your store in Ardmore, what are some of the favorite businesses that you like to visit in Ardmore?
Well, I mean, I'm very excited that Trace opened, because she has a kind of a different, you know, vibe than I do. You know, more like kind of a designer look and the framing. Pucci Manoli has a gorgeous store, stunningly beautiful inside. I really like Puns, that opened as a regular toy store. You know, Marion Art I go to, because obviously I can get some sports supplies and stuff there, and I partner with them, and we do some projects together. And you know, I mean, I try to support all the, like, me and my husband try to get takeout as much as possible now, but we try to, you know, eat in town, and we can walk, you know, maybe when restaurants were open, we would just walk to dinner, which is so lovely. I used to love Milk Boy, because, you know, I partnered with Jamie and Tommy, because where could, you know, all of a sudden you're in Ardmore and you can sit down and listen to this amazing jazz music when they had the jazz nights. I mean, you know, the Ardmore Music Hall. I love the living room. I love what Lauren does, and that's just so great. And I like to, you know, when she was open, that's just such a great venue to hear music. It's just so relaxing. And then that's right in your town, you know. I don't drink beer, so I'm not a beer person. So, you know, I'm not the tired hands, the person. I just, for some reason, you know, whiskey, Japanese whiskey especially, very good.
I like Japanese whiskey.
Yeah,
I can do that.
yeah. But not that I haven't been to those places to support them. I just don't drink beer. You know, they have the glass of wine for people like me. But yeah, no, I try to support all the places I can in town. I love Mapes. You know, when my kids were little, Mapes on Rittenhouse Place, you know, you give your kid $5. This was the rite of passage. And they, you know, they could go buy something, and then you hope for they come back, you know, and they always did with something. And that was like where it's like such a small town that you can do that, you know. Now it's changed a little bit, but I'm just saying it still has that vibe for me.
It still has. I think it's a little bit more exciting now. I like this. It's a small town feel, but it also has a city vibe in a sense.
Right.
You know, and I think that's what's keeping us going, is the sense. Like when it comes to like food, like during this time, I ordered only strictly Ardmore businesses for to-go food. Matter of fact, the other day I did my first in-person place. I actually went to Ripplewood and sat down with Jack Burns, and we shared a cocktail, just to be the first to go out. It was a little scary at first, I have to admit, but you know, once you got past it and you see how clean everything is and how they're taking it serious, then you felt at ease, if that makes any sense. So I'm assuming you do the same thing, going into your store, sanitizing everything, you just feel more at ease.
Right.
Right. I mean, now that's really what is going to get us back, right? Is that we have to make people feel comfortable. You know, that we're taking every precaution that we can to make it safe and clean. And that once people get over that fear, then things will become normal to some extent. I don't think they'll become as they were until there's a vaccine. I think we're all aware of that. But I think we could do it in steps, where there's a comfort level. I mean, consumer confidence, you know, when you think about the economy, has nothing to do with how much money you have in your pocket. It's whether you think you will have money in your pocket. Right.
It's all about the future.
So, I mean, that's, you know, so that's a similar mindset that we're going through right now.
Do you have any advice you have to anybody who wanted to open a business in Ardmore or anywhere, actually? Do you have any?
Well, I mean, I think you really have to be realistic. You know, the statistics are not on your side. And now in COVID, forget it. But before COVID, all new businesses, you know, only like, you know, less than 10% survive 3 years. Okay. That's true for retail. Restaurants, it's way lower than that,
That's
you
true.
know. And so, you know, you have to go in saying, okay, I can weather several years of not making money.
Right.
That's a hard take for a lot of people to accept that that's the reality. You're not going to probably don't go in thinking you're going to make money for 3 years. That's, you know, sign me up for it, you know, like, you know, so that's why it's hard. But if you have a passion for it and you're smart, and now with internet shopping, and you could have an online presence as well as a brick and mortar, then you have more of a chance than I think I had when I started, you know. But you have to have a passion for it. It's not easy. I mean, everybody that thinks that, oh, I want to open a restaurant, I love cooking, that's just a part of it, you know. It's not easy being in business, in any kind of business, because there are, you know, peaks and valleys with everything that we do in life, with relationships, with everything else. You have to be able to be realistic. But I feel like you have to have a passion for whatever it is, because if you don't have that passion, then why do it, you know?
I can appreciate that. Really can appreciate that. Well, I think that's a good note to end this on. What do you guys think?
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, plus I understand you have to get ready and go to the store anyway.
Yeah.
That's right. We're working.
Well, I want to thank you for taking your time out of your busy day to talk with us.
Absolutely.
And if you have anything you want to say on closing remarks to anybody, please go right ahead.
Red carpet is out for you.
Okay. Well, thanks for obviously doing this. This is great because it gets people connected with the businesses in Ardmore, and that's really what we're all about. And I encourage people to support every business you can, because it's a really, really tough time for so many people. And, you know, yeah, it's easy to shop online, but it really is important to shop locally and to support your community, because if you want your community to thrive, you're an integral part of it. So, you know, and it could be $10, it doesn't matter. It's just that if everybody did that, then businesses would survive, you know? So thank you
very much.
Yeah. And everything helps, guys. Sherry, it was an absolute pleasure to have you here today. For all of you guys watching, new episodes are every Tuesday at 12 o'clock. And thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Ardmore Connect.